What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number, I believe we're 184. Yeah, 184 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we are back after 2 weeks off. We're talking UFC Denver, Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. Really kind of a haphazardly thrown together card, to be honest. Like, we didn't even have, like, a third of the fights were missing until the middle of last week. So could be some weird shit going on. Not a lot of people on camps, altitude. Real quick, I guess let's chat about last week briefly. I think it was a shit show for just about everybody I know. If you made money on it, congratulations. You did a fucking hell of a job. I lost minus 3.6 units. It was pretty frustrating night for me. My biggest bet was Mariya Silva. I had 2 units on her. That was extremely aggravating. Like, I don't know how it would have played out past that, but I wasn't really like too worried about her. And obviously cut stoppage. I had Charles Jourdain, which also not that aggravating. Charles way overdue to get knocked out, if we're being honest. And obviously we'll talk Gene Silva again tonight. So, I mean, not that shocking that happened. I thought pretty good. I felt pretty good about Jourdain going in, but yeah, I mean, the guy gets hit a lot, and Silva packs a punch. I bet Carlos Hernandez for a unit. I thought he covered his price. I mean, he lost, but it was a reasonably close fight. You know, if he had done a better job in the last minute of round 1, he might have won it. I had the over 1.5 there at minus 163, which cashed. Had the goes the distance there, which cashed. I had the goes the distance in the Ian Gary fight. And then I took a couple prop flyers on MBS. But Buenos Silva inside the distance, Waterson decision, and Hernandez decision, all small bets. All lost. So, yeah, minus 3.6 units. I honestly felt kind of like, given some of the wreckage I saw, I kind of felt happy to kind of come away with just that. How did you do, Legs?
It was a small loss for me as well. So I had MBS as well and Charles Jourdain, and then I had the over 2.5 rounds in Doleeds Smith.
That was nice. I pushed out on that hard, to be honest. I kept thinking about it. I'm like, fuck, man, Smith's old.
Yeah.
The leads. It was sometimes you just don't keep it simple, you know. And that was one of those spots. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I will say, I will say is it was tough though, because it was a small loss for me, and I think it would have been a winning night had Brian Ortega actually gotten to the cage against Diego Lopez. But
did you have Lopez? Oh yeah, you did have Lopez. I had Brian Ortega, so maybe I got bailed, or maybe you got bailed. Brian Ortega was about to put on a show.
Yes,
we don't know. That was bizarre, man. I actually ended up betting Ige small there too, just because I was like, dude, plus 300, and I feel like if Ige had a full camp, he probably would have won. It seemed like he looked like a man who had not been preparing to get into a fist fight for 2 rounds, and then kind of started feeling himself like as the fight went on. So. What's going on, Glenbot? What's going on, Pepe? Brian was completely compromised. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was. He pulled out on fight night. Was probably going to lose. But, all right, I mean, so there was a little bit of fortune there. Anyway, I owe you, I believe, 2 shots. I am not looking forward to this. We pulled the fireball out of the well. I haven't done one of these in years. My fake living room is giving me some issues putting it in the camera, but... Eventually, when I finish my basement, I'll have a better place to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do these shots of Fireball, and then we're going to get with the fucking program here. Back to talking fights, which is exciting. What do I owe these for? I don't even remember. I'm sure I know.
So I'm going to try to remember them exactly. So Derek Lewis and Nascimento. So
we're that far back, really?
Yes, that was the first one.
I've been ducking you.
The second one, I'm pretty sure, was Rosas and Tercios. And I said that he was going to just win that. Either that was the second one or the third one. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, God. Yeah. It's I really hung you out to dry on these, huh? All right, one more.
No, it's all right.
One more.
The Fireball's a good one, John.
It's not a bad one, and there could be worse. Cheers, everybody. Here's to a good second half of the year.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's fucking do it. UFC Denver. First fight of the night. We have. Oh, hold on. Before I get into UFC Denver, I'm all over the place here. Week off left me a bit rusty here. My fastball is a bit slower than normal.
Those 2 shots did you in there.
First of all, take a look at the layout, everybody. We are brought to you and sponsored by Fight Numbers, John Kelly's new group. Awesome place. You should check it out. New layout brought to you by them. And The same promo we've been running the last couple weeks here. Let me give you a little bit of info about them. First of all, a lot of different offerings there. They've got Pepe, they've got Ozzy, they got Chad, and they got Evan, all giving picks. All of those guys, big plus EV bettors, putting money in people's pockets mostly every week. I mean, I think everybody lost money last card, but other than that, putting money in people's pockets every week. All of those bets come along with a Fight Numbers subscription. They got the live odds screen. You can literally update every 10 seconds the live odds across the board. I was using it for UFC 303 with my live bets, and it was actually super helpful since it has every domestic and international book. They also have John Kelly's DFS projections, which as someone who plays DFS, I can confirm are as good or better than anybody else's. So, yeah, I mean, they're offering a huge, huge product there at a better price than most of the other players in the industry. Check them out, guys. For 30% off your first month, use the promo code CLUB. Again, like, great group of guys. I've hung out with all of them in person, except Chad. One day, Chad will come down from his castle in Canada and hang out with us simpletons in America. But I've hung out with the rest of them. Cool dudes, very good bettors, a lot of great info on there. Fight Numbers, check it out. And, yeah, use the promo code CLUB. Now, on to the main event of this show, which is the actual show breaking down this card. First fight of the night. We have a new one that was added this morning. Again, I don't know how the fuck Darius Flowers is going to not suffer cardiac arrest fighting in Denver on 3 days' notice. But we've got Evan Elder, Darius Flowers. You have odds for that up there, lads? I'm pulling up that online right now.
No, I'm at fight odds. I got nothing on fight odds.
Let's see. Yeah, current price, Evan Elder, minus 410. Come back on Flowers, plus 310. I mean, I think the line's probably fine. I think the line is probably fine. But, yeah, I just don't rate Flowers at all. I bet Michael Johnson big against him in his last fight. I feel like I just said, Flowers having to fight on short notice in Denver seems terrible for a guy who has no gas to begin with. He's at a striking disadvantage here. He's at a large grappling disadvantage here. He's at a cardio disadvantage here. He does parry power, so he could knock Elder out early, I suppose. Elder seems pretty tough to me, though, so I don't really see it. I guess if you wanted to make an argument on the Flowers side, you could make a market-based argument that goes something like Michael Johnson was minus 130 against him. You know, would Michael Johnson be plus 300 to Evan Elder? Definitely not. But at the same time, you know, I told you guys at the time, we both did, and it proved to be very, very right that Michael Johnson was in a different class than Darius Flowers. This guy's not UFC level. Evan Elder is. I think the price is fine. What do you think, Lex?
Yeah, I mean, echo similar sentiments here. I think Elder 2-3 is probably, priced in accurately here. I don't really think there's anything to really attack here on the first fight.
Yeah, Pepe said it might as well be Malibu rum, and he's going to love the fact that I'm drinking a strawberry lemonade Surfside right now.
Never had one of those.
Dude, it is. I'm telling you, it's the drink of this summer. People are going to remember 2024 for Joe Biden not being able to form complete sentences, Alex Pereira, and Surfside iced tea vodkas. That is what 2024 will be remembered for.
Okay. Right.
Well, this one is a lemonade vodka, but the iced tea vodka, that is where it's at. I'm telling you guys, if you like kind of fruity drinks that can fuck you up a bit in the summer, Surfside's where it's at.
Yeah, I'm literally having Arnold Palmer right now, so.
I'm a big fan of the Arnold Palmers. That's more or less what they are. Moving on, though, we got Jasmine Jasudavicius. She's taking on Fatima Kline. Current price, minus 110 aside. I bet Jasmine at an earlier price as a dog. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some value here at the current price, but I don't know that I'd be dying to get involved at minus 110, just since, I mean, Jasmine's got so many big holes in her game. I guess my view, I've seen a lot of people talk about Kline being an elite prospect, and I do think she's a good prospect for sure. Striking looks pretty clean. Good jiu-jitsu. Obviously, for 115, where she had been fighting, she was a lot bigger and a lot more physical than the women she'd been fighting. And thus far, she has dominated just about everybody she's fought. So, I understand why there's a bit of hype about Kline coming in. I do think, though, you have to contextualize Fatima Kline a bit. She hasn't, you go back, if you actually tape those fights, the women she's fighting, with the exception of Laura Gallardo, they're civilians. That's what they are. They are not real fighters. And even in Laura Gallardo, I bet Laura Gallardo, to be clear. I also got flamed for it on Twitter for betting a plus 390. And then Jewish Better turned around and retweeted it and was taking like a victory lap for telling me that Fatima Kline minus 500 was going to win. Like, I can give it as good as I get it, But if you're gonna try to like dunk on someone who lost a bet a year and a half ago, maybe don't do it on the minus 500. Like, congratulations. Anyway, I'll limit the shit talk to that. But Laura Gallardo is not great either. But I mean, at least it's a reasonable opponent. Whereas, so it's like Kline, she showcased the skills of a very, very strong prospect, no doubt. But I'm not ready to kind of get to the point where I'm ready to say she is, a championship level fighter, a top 10 fighter, a top 15 fighter. I mean, the reality is she's 23 years old. She's fought a very, very low level of competition. She's moving up in weight here to 125. She has fought there before, but again, like not often. And again, against the aforementioned, cans, really. And she's fighting in Denver as well. Now, she did have a fight booked for September, but I don't believe she'd started her camp yet. On top of which, look, I will say she does look fairly talented, but I'm also fairly familiar with the gym she trains out of. It's pretty close to my house, and it's not really an MMA gym, to be honest. They have a location in Central Jersey that's a bit more MMA, but there's not a ton of fighters or bodies there other than Aaron for her to train with. And I suspect for the people that like Kline, that's going to be a common refrain, like, oh, she's training with Aaron Blanchfield. Is this as if that means like it's a superpower? I mean, Dustin Poirier trains with Armin Saruk, or not, well, used to, and Mateusz Gamrot, and he still can't wrestle. So, I mean, but anyway, Kline's a decent prospect. I am somewhat bullish about her, but I also think, and then when you think about Jasmine, I think Jasmine's got a lot of holes. Very poor striking defense, very, very easy to hit. Cardio could be better at times. She's just not very technically strong in anything but grappling. But in the grappling, she's a very strong wrestler. She's a very, very strong counter wrestler. She's big. She's very, very physical. And, she's just going to come forward and zombie forward at you, try to get you in the clinch, beat you up in the clinch, get you down and beat you up there. And so I look at this fight, and you say whatever you want about Jasmine and her lack of technical acumen. This is a woman who's 5-2 in the UFC. The 315-pounders she's fought, she's basically dumpstered. She ripped through Miranda Maverick. Tracy Cortez, who's main eventing this card, she fought pretty much 50-50 in that fight to the end, like gave it a real go, even though she was outclassed on the feet there. And now she's fighting a 6-0 prospect in Fatima Kline, who's 23 years old, had no camp, is moving up in weight, and she's being priced at pick'em. And like surface level, yeah, if you think Kline right now is a top 10 to 15 fighter, okay, I can see pick'em. But based on the sample, I just don't really see how you get there. The truth is Kline's never fought someone more physical than her, who's bigger, who can get her into, the clinch and potentially beat her up there. I feel the macro uncertainties and the short notice and moving up a weight class in and of themselves would lend me to lean to the Jasmine side. But when you factor in the size, and the aggression from Jasmine, I feel like you have to favor her here, like say whatever you want. People are going to make technical arguments against Jasmine all week. But who cares? Like Macy Barber's a top 5 fighter with basically no technical skills except being a hoss. So I look at it and, if Kline turns out to be like the best prospect in MMA, stuffs takedowns, sticks and move easily, she's going to win. If she can avoid the clinch and keep it at distance, she's going to win. But no one's really been able to do that to Jasmine yet, and I don't really think she's going to be able to. It's a competitive fight. I do think Kline's the more skilled fighter. I just don't think she's really ready for this level of competition. So I'm on Jasmine. A lot of breakdown there. What do you think, Lex?
No, it's okay because I will have a little bit of a less breakdown. But I mean, I more or less agree with you on the Jasmine side, but I think pretty much to me, it's like Jasmine 55-60%. So current line, I'm not super interested, to your point. I kind of just missed that big, plus 130, plus 140 dog on Jasmine. I mean, this line was just ping-ponging back and forth, really, from obviously Jasmine, big favorite, to then dog, then pick 'em. But to me, I think Jasmine's the better grappler here. And then I think that Fatima's the better striker in the matchup. I think cardio is pretty commensurate. So to me, I just think it's a competitive, close fight.
Yeah, it could be. I guess the only thing I'll add, I meant to add this before, and Pepe mentioned you could see top 15 at 115, but not 125. Yeah, I mean, size matters,
Right.
It's a big deal. But, I mean, the current price is basically implying Fatima would be near pick or maybe a small underdog to Tracy Cortez right now based on power rating, how the market's power rating it. And I just don't really – I don't think with the data we have you can really get there, in my opinion anyway. But anyway, that was a lot of words for the second fight of the night.
No, that's all right.
I got my word vomit out of my system early. Maybe. We move on. Montel Jackson, Damon Blackshear. This is a pretty cool fight. I feel like this fight could play out really fun or be really ugly. Current price, Jackson minus 138. Come back on Blackshear plus 118. What are your thoughts here, Lags?
By far, to me, like one of the hardest fights to read on the card. I'm kind of leaning on the Blackshear side just because I do think he can land takedowns, but I struggle because also he's coming up a little bit on short notice for this fight. So does he have the gas to completely, do that for 2 out of 3 rounds or even full 15 minutes? But I think it's going to be tough to hold Montel down personally. And I think in the striking, I think it's going to be pretty competitive. So to me, it's Blackshear pass, but I'm passing.
Dogfather says, sorry, I'm late. Was busy cleaning John and Propaholic's house. Welcome to the show, Dogfather. Good to have you in here, brother. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting fight because obviously I bet Brett Johns back in the day against Montel. I have some issues with how Montel grapples defensively. In particular, he doesn't defend doubles very well, and he does give his back up to get up. And so I can imagine scenarios where Blackshear can just hit double legs and get to his back. What concerns me on even, let's say that plays out exactly like that. Montel is a really tough guy to hold down, first of all, even when he gives his back up. I mean, the guy has meat cleavers for hands. They're just gigantic, and he seems strong as shit. Like, you see when guys get his back, they literally can't lock their hands because he can just literally one hand hold it off. You saw MVP do the same with Gary, actually, at UFC 303. Very similar dynamic. So I think subbing Montel will be very hard. On top of which, with that kind of strength, if he's made any improvements to his jiu-jitsu, I can imagine him turning through that and getting on top of Blackshear. And Montel's actually really good on top, which I think would be bad. And I also just kind of think, you look at Blackshear, he's got some lower body takedowns, but his best takedowns tend to come from upper body. And I don't really think he's going to be hossing Montel from the upper body at all. But I can see the case for him, right? Wrestler with jiu-jitsu who can get back takes. I can absolutely see the case. I just think Montel is kind of a tough guy to assume Blackshear is going to be able to just dominate the grappling. Even Ricky Simone, who's a great wrestler, had trouble kind of dominating the grappling. Brett Johns, same. I mean, that fight, despite Brett Johns having 9 minutes of control, you can make an argument he lost the fight, And so I don't think it's that clear cut that Blackshear is going to get top time, or not top time. I think he can get top time, but that he'll be able to just easily ride out back positions. And like I mentioned, if Montel can turn through, he can beat him up. And at distance, I like that Blackshear has been pushing more of a tempo lately, but I just don't think he's even in the same ballpark as Montel as a striker. Montel is just a lot more refined, very, very dangerous, very long, very powerful. I think Blackshear is going to get himself in a bit of trouble on the feet, to be honest, if he's there for extended periods. So, yeah, I mean, I don't feel strongly about it because I can imagine Blackshear winning a grappling heavy fight. And, yeah, to Pepe's point, I mean, Damon could fuck up Montel's legs. He's got little skinny chicken legs. That's how you come in there where they frame like that. I just feel like, I don't know. I don't have a great read on the fight, personally, at all. I actually, Glenbot said, what do you think about over 1.5? I actually before opener people smashed it. I really liked GTD and and over. I still kind of like GTD at minus 190. I actually think most of the finishing equity is Montel KOing Blackshear, and I just don't think that's super high probability, to be honest. So that's kind of where I lean. I don't feel strongly on the money line, though. Moving on, I'll throw it to you here, Legs. We got Joshua Van. He's taking on Charles Johnson. Current price, Joshua Van is minus 210. Come back on Johnson, plus 180. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I don't have a bet on Van, but I know you almost definitely have a bet on Charles Johnson. So let's do a shot bet, John. Come on. Are you doing 2 if I win? Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. That's what I offered you with Tercios too. It wasn't a 1-for-1. But yeah, no, to me, I just feel like Van is going to land the harder shots and just going to have more volume here on the feet. I think better cardio as well. I mean, I've pretty much every Charles Johnson fight since the Ode fight, I've just been very harping on him all the time, just not throwing enough, just letting fights get away. So I lean on the Van side. I think the line's probably accurate.
I do not think there's any way the line's accurate, to be honest. I bet 2 units on Charles plus 170. Look, Charles Johnson has his issues. Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone today, and I said on his tombstone, it's going to be Charles Johnson should have done more. You know, that's literally what it's going to be.
Charles should have done more, Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Johnson has lost a number of fights he could have won. And I bet him on a number of those fights. But I did bet him in his last 2, and he won those. And I like him again here. I guess I think Van's a serious prospect, to be honest. And I think any reasonable person would agree with that. Crazy pace, crazy cardio, hits the body. But he's also 23. He's pretty inexperienced. His best win is Zhalgas in a very, very close fight. It's just, you know, it kind of reminds me, and I don't want to say he's going to be Max Holloway, but like you go back to like Max Holloway's first 6 to 8 fights in the UFC. You know, you could see the talent, but he took a bunch of L's there. He was there very early in his career. He took a bunch of losses early on, and he just kept getting better. And I think if you talk to me about Joshua Van in 2 to 3 years, we're going to be having a very different conversation than the one we're having right now, because I am pretty bullish on Van for his career. And I'm actually even bullish on him now. He's got a great style for winning fights, obviously. But he is a bit on the hittable side. You know, he's gotten rocked before. I don't think he's got, like, rock-solid durability by any means. Not that he's fragile, but he can be hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we've seen it happen before a fair amount. He's a very, very large grappling liability, in my opinion. Like, I don't think his get-up game is horrible, but he just doesn't seem to have a great sense of positional jiu-jitsu at all. He's not the best defensive wrestler, and you know, basically right now he's relying on pure boxing and physical attributes to win fights. And now he's fighting a guy in Charles Johnson who's very, very experienced. He's fought a lot of really good guys. You know, Johnson is not a guy who tends to get badly out volumed. That doesn't happen to him. Like, you're not going to break Charles Johnson just with pace and pressure, you know? And so I look at this fight. It's like Charles Johnson's way more experienced. He's got 5 inches of height, 5 inches of reach. He should be able to match Van's volume. I think there's very, very little chance that this turns into a fight where it's like Bunes or Borjas, where Johnson is cowering as Van just like marches forward like a robot after him for the last 10 minutes of the fight. You know, Charles is going to give it back. One thing you can say about Charles, he can be inactive, but he will give it back if you throw at him. Like, he's going to give it back a lot. And so I think in the striking, it's probably going to play out pretty close. Van hits a bit harder, a bit more finishing equity, probably on the feet. But then you also have to figure Johnson's definitely got more grappling equity. He attempts a couple takedowns every fight, so it's easy to see him landing a takedown or two. He's got much more submission upside in this fight. And also, you know, if they go to the clinch a fair amount, Johnson is much, much better there. And so I look at it, and yeah, I mean, like I said, Charles Johnson, tendency to not do enough. Van is a doer of things. I can easily imagine Joshua Van winning this fight off being a doer of things. But I don't really see many scenarios where the fight doesn't play out close if it goes 15 minutes. And I mean, it's minus 350 to go over 2.5. So the market's saying it's super likely to go 15 minutes. And so you're telling me in a close fight where the much more experienced guy, who's also much bigger, much longer, the much better grappler, better in the clinch, that equates to plus 170? I don't really think so. To me, that seems like a lot of recency bias. I do make Van a small favorite, like minus 120 range, just because he does hit harder and he is more assertive. But I don't think you can get past that. So I'm in on Johnson, 2 units plus 170. We'll see how it goes. Moving on, Josh Fremd, Andre Petroski. In our boy Rich's lexicon, we got Andre Petroski as the mush of the week here. Current odds are minus 110 a piece. Do you agree with that, Legs?
I do agree with that. And first, I will say, so obviously I do agree with that. Secondly, that nobody's talking about, this is the Battle of Pennsylvania. Obviously, we have Pittsburgh, Joshua Fremd versus Philly, Andre Petroski. And obviously, we're going with Pittsburgh there. But no, in all seriousness, I like Josh Fremd a lot here. Just to me, Petroski's success is front-loaded here. I feel like on the feet here, Fremd's a way better striker. I struggle to see Petroski having success grappling the later this fight goes. So to me, minus 110 doesn't make a ton of sense. I think Fremd could be like minus 150 in the spot.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually think if it wasn't in altitude, I'd actually consider betting Petroski here. But it is in altitude, and Petroski is a horrible, horrible gasser, so that is what it is. I see every argument for the Fremd side. The one thing I'll say is the guy defends takedowns at 38%, and while I've seen the Fluffy fight referenced a bunch to show how Fremd isn't easy to hold down, I also think that kind of mistakes Fluffy's game. Like, Fluffy's not going to go chest to chest with you and positionally grapple you. He's trying to take you down, chain submissions, and if he doesn't get him and you work up, he'll take you right back down. But he's not really concerned with, most of the time, with consolidating like top position so much as working to put a pace on you. I actually think in terms of, being chest to chest, Fremd's a much better control grappler than anyone. Or not Fremd, sorry. Petroski is a much better control grappler than anyone Fremd has fought. And so I can see a fair amount of equity for Petroski having a lot of success early in this fight grappling. But with that said, I mean, even if you look at the wins that Petroski's had late, Turman, go rewatch the Turman fight and look at how Petroski looks when the bell rings at 15 minutes. Dude, it's not good. The man looks like he's half dead. Same thing with Zoo. Same thing with Gilmore. The dude has terrible gas, and that's fighting in the Apex or in Madison Square Garden.
Horrible round three.
Yeah. And now he's in altitude. It's not going to go well, especially on short notice, in my opinion. On top of which, the striking is just abysmal. Like, Andre Petroski, he does hit hard, and I could imagine him knocking out Fremd, I guess. But, man, he is like one of the worst strikers I've ever seen, like in the UFC. It's just aimless, It's just
a lot of overhands.
Yeah, big winging overhand. The thing that drives me nuts, like when I'm looking at this fight, is I saw multiple people we know who laid like minus 250 on Petroski against GM3. I bet GM3 like plus 240 in that fight. And my read on Petroski was 100% accurate. I don't get paid. And now he's picking in fucking altitude with Josh Fremd. Like, I don't have much interest in it just because I think Fremd, there might be a decent live bet here. I think Petroski can win round one in this fight at a decent clip. So I think he's going to lose the fight on gas, but it's not really hard to imagine him getting to top position early in this fight and controlling Fremd, in my opinion. So, but I honestly, what do you? Let me ask you something. What do you think of GTD here?
I personally, I don't.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I was looking at it today, and I'm like, under 2.5 minus 130. Like, I could easily see Petroski finishing him early in the fight, or I could see Fremd finishing him, mid to late. But ultimately, I'm passing on that.
I was hoping for a much bigger number. Like, when I looked, I was thinking it was going to be like plus 250 to go the distance, and it's like I could imagine Petroski just surviving on skates until the end of this fight. But
well, I think Fremd decision's like plus 415. So
that's not horrible. Yeah, it's not awful. It's not awful. I don't know if I'll bet that. I don't know. I don't want to get too cute with it, honestly.
Right.
But yeah.
But I like Fremd. Yep.
Moving on. I am curious for your take here. You saw what I saw today. We both saw this. We have Luana Santos, current price minus 415. Comeback on Mariya Agapova plus 315. What are your thoughts here?
So we won't get into details with it, but like just
I'm gonna get into the details.
That's fine. Well, outside of the cage stuff for Agapova, for me, is so hard to not look into. And so, like, to me, like, people might look at it and be like, okay, plus 300, it's wide. Given everything outside and given the fact that this is at elevation, it might not be wide. But speaking on the Santos side, though, I don't think this is like by any means like a free leg, like some people might be thinking, or like throwing her in parlays. Like, I don't think she's some great wrestler, and her striking to me is very shit too. But she's fighting Agapova, who's a horrible defensive grappler. I think Santos probably finds a submission in that, again, middle to late rounds, probably round 2.
Yeah, so I was actually leaning towards betting Agapova before someone we know, a mutual friend, shared some details of her, I guess we'd call it her diary on her Patreon, of her just kind of chronicling her really awful life, I guess, for like, I don't want to be mean, but I mean, It that was grim. It was pretty rough to read. And all I'll say is she talks a lot about not eating, being poor, which I don't care about that, but like how she was almost homeless, how she's shoveling sleeping pills down her throat, like in the last week to get to sleep because she can't sleep, how fucked up her travel has been. It was just like very, 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 very weird. She talks about how she thinks she's going to die young. Like that is literally a quote from her, because people like her who only live to fight only die young. It was very, very grim stuff. And it made me wonder, like, where I don't do the narrative game, but I was reading it, and I'm just like, Christ. Yeah, I mean, Pepe makes a point here. More honest than other fighters, you don't hear about it because they have filters. That's a fair point. But what I will say is, like, from a fight perspective, I think Santos is garbage, to be honest. I think, to your point, Lags, I don't think she's a great wrestler. Obviously, she's a judo girl, but I think judo, if you know what you're doing and have a decent center of gravity, is fairly easy to counter. I mean, we've seen that over and over again. Her jiu-jitsu is okay. It's nothing special. I think she's a terrible striker. She's got terrible cardio. They talked about that disease she had and why she couldn't lose weight, but then I saw her posting about the reason she was so heavy for her last fight is she was on vacation partying. This is literally her words, not mine. So I'm like, was it a disease, or did she use that to excuse missing weight by 5 pounds at 135, and now she's fighting at 125? And yeah, so like I think Agapova is a better athlete, a much better striker. She's faster, she hits a lot harder. I mean, the problem that we all know here, though, is if Agapova ends up grounded, she's clueless there. Like literally, like she doesn't have like. She tries to get up, but she doesn't really know what she's doing. Her jiu-jitsu defensively anyway. It's actually not bad offensively. I'll give her credit, but defensively, it's like she's fighting the wrong hand constantly. She's turning the wrong way constantly. It's the kind of stuff that any like reasonably skilled jiu-jitsu player should be able to capitalize on and finish her. What I will say with that regard, she claims, and I don't know how much of this is true, but like she claims she's been training grappling nonstop for the last 2 years. And it's been about 2 years since we saw her in the octagon. So maybe she's made improvements. And if so, if she can keep this standing, she's going to fuck Santos up, in my opinion. I don't trust it. I don't really like what I've seen. I'm kind of happy to pass it. I do think the line does seem on the crazy side, but I don't know where she's at. She took a karate combat grappling match, and she basically got insta-tapped to a heel hook, which doesn't tell us much. So, yeah, I mean, Santos should win.
It's a complete mystery, I think.
Yeah, which you can make the argument for.
Which is good. Right.
Into the unknown. Yeah, right. So, moving on, though, we have another really cool fight here. We got Gene Silva. He's turning around on 2 weeks' notice, less than 2 weeks' notice, but on 2 weeks to fight Drew Dober. Current price, market, very, very high on Gene Silva. Charles Jourdain was minus 140 at close to Gene Silva. Gene Silva's now minus 115 to Drew Dober. What do you think, Lex? You think it's rational?
It's very hard for me to not click Drew Dober, but at the same time, like you and I both know how hittable Drew Dober is at that same time.
Stop it.
Listen, to be honest with you, I am probably going to bet Dober, but I think an under 2.5 at like minus 230 is a great parlay piece. I expect this fight to just be a car crash. But yeah, I mean, Silva moving up a weight class within 2 weeks, fighting Dober, who, again, massive strength of schedule, massive cardio advantages. To me, I think he has a power advantages over Silva. But
yes.
it is so tough for me to not see Dober getting hit clean nonstop. And I think his durability is definitely diminishing.
Let me ask you, why do you think his durability is diminishing?
Well, I guess I should say I left the hitability part is more so my concern. Him getting knocked up by Frivola is the only durability concern I really have.
I mean, Frivola's got like 8 knockdowns in the UFC. The guy hits hard. Look, I'm obviously betting Drew Dober. I'm not making any secret of it here. I bet Charles Jourdain at a worse price last week than Drew Dober here. I'm obviously turning around and betting Drew Dober. Drew Dober not only is a better fighter than Charles Jourdain, he's a lot bigger. He's up a weight class. He hits the body too. He's historically got elite durability. Guy's been knocked down twice in 23 UFC fights by Matt Frevola and by Terrence McKinney. He's a much better grappler. I actually think there's like sneaky wrestling upside on the Dober side here. He actually went for it a bit against Bobby Green, but I mean, he's not going to out-wrestle Bobby. But he hasn't had many matchups that would have been conducive to him wrestling recently. Whereas this one, seeing what I saw against Jourdain, I'm like pretty high conviction Silva's a bad grappler, and I think Dober could actually out-grapple him. But even if they just strike, it kind of reminds me of the Rafael Alves fight, you know? Very, very fast, explosive guy, but who's not really that diverse, not much of a grappler. Like, the guys that are giving Dober issues are generally very big grapplers. Like, yeah, Bobby gave him issues, but Bobby Green is like one of the best strikers in the sport, you know? He is. He's got plenty of issues, but the guy, very good on the counter, very good at throwing in combination, very good at managing distance. I will say, Silva counters pretty well. I agree with Pepe. You said the over 1.5 at Pick'em seems generous. I tend to agree with that. Silva counters pretty well, but like unless you think Dober's chin is just gone, I don't really see how he's not considerably higher favorite here. I mean, he's the much bigger guy who hits a lot harder, who hits the body, who throws more, and who's going to put Silva on the back foot. No one's really done that before. And there is some downside to Blue Valley's point. There is some downside to the Dober side as he's getting older. But the truth is, this is on paper one of the worst fights or one of the easiest fights for Dober he's had in years. Look, Drew Dober's been fighting the top of the division or the best fighters in the world for years. Gene Silva just beat Charles Jourdain and Weston Wilson and fought 2 weeks ago and is going up in weight and fighting in altitude against the guy with elite hardware. I just maybe that's the square take, and maybe Dober's durability is cracking, and I can't wait for all the I told you so's if he gets knocked out. But like, what's everybody to say if Dober just walks forward, wrecks this dude to the body, and finishes him 8 minutes in? Like what's more likely? Drew Dober getting knocked out by a featherweight, or Drew Dober just like blowing him away?
Yeah. I agree. Listen, I agree with you, John. I'm playing Dober as well.
Yeah, so we'll see. I like Dober here. I'm not going crazy on it because I do agree with you. He's obviously not as good as he once was. He could get knocked out, but I think the Jourdain was a big step up in competition, right? This is a much larger step up in competition than Charles Jourdain was. And Dober on paper should have him pretty well covered here. So, yeah, I'm on Dober for 2 units at -106. We'll see how it goes, but yeah. Moving on, Christian Rodriguez. He's taking on Julian Erosa. Current price, Rodriguez -200. Come back on Erosa, +170. What do you think your likes?
I think the line's honestly pretty fine, if not could be a little bit wider. Like, to me, like, obviously we know the obvious chin concerns of Julian Erosa, but to me, also in this matchup, I don't think Erosa's going to have much success in the grappling department here. So I think C-Rod could find a knockout on the feet. I think C-Rod, again, just lands the better shots on the feet. I think the volume's pretty close, and I think he could land some takedowns himself. But again, I just favor C-Rod a good bit in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think the line's fine. I think if it goes 15, it's probably a pretty competitive fight. You know, like Erosa is going to look value if it goes 15 minutes. Like very likely, probably, in my opinion. You know, and I actually think he could get a couple takedowns here. I just don't think he can really control C-Rod. The problem for me is just I feel like the finishing equity in this fight massively favors Rodriguez. Dude's very, very durable. He's a pretty sharp counter boxer. And Erosa, he's chinny and he's got bad defense and he's super susceptible to counterpunching. So,
and C-Rod's a pretty solid defensive grappler too. So
the bear case for C-Rod here. I think his defensive grappling he's a good scrambler and he's very good at not getting subs. I think his defensive grappling leaves a bit to be desired, to be honest, in terms of his wrestling and ability to keep fights upright. But the bear case for C-Rod is he's giving up a ton of size. Erosa, if you don't kill him, is a maniac who will just not stop coming forward and putting out offense. And I think Erosa can have a lot of success in this fight if it extends. I just think we've reached the point now where he's been KO'd 3 out of 4 fights, something like that. It's like 7 times now in his career. And I think the line's baking that in. I don't think you're really like, let's say there's like a 35% chance of a C-Rod finish and like a 15% chance that Erosa finishes, something like that in that neighborhood. I mean, that's your line right there, in my opinion. It's going to be a close fight if it goes the distance. It might even favor Erosa if it goes the distance. I just think we've reached the point where it's kind of hard, to trust his chin. I mean, this is a guy who got wobbled by Ricardo Ramos last fight before he finished him. Knocked out by Oscar Saris, I'm just – Juicy's my boy, and, like, if he's taking the power a lot, I'll play him live. But I don't really have much interest. Yeah. Moving on, though. Interesting fight. Cody Brundage, Razak Alhassan. Current price on Razak's minus 170. Comeback on Brundage plus 145. Honestly, the macro for Razak here is absolutely horrible. I mean, you have an undersized middleweight with bad gas, bad wrestling, who's 39 years old, in altitude, taking on a wrestler. Like, that's not something you really ever want to get behind, except the wrestler he's taking on is Cody Brundage, So it's funny because if it was just about anybody else with Cody Brundage's skill set, I'd bet Cody Brundage at the price, like, for sure. I think he should be able to get takedowns, potentially get to dominant positions here. But at this point, it's like, how many times do we have to watch Cody Brundage just totally collapse before we say, okay, against a dangerous finisher, I just don't want to be involved here, which is maybe a stupid way to look at it. And I've thought about betting Brundage, but I think I'd need like plus 175 to really get involved with him. But yeah, I mean, you can't. I've seen people betting Razak, and I just think I can't get there, man. Like, the guy, he's old, he has terrible gas, and he can't wrestle, and he's in altitude, and he's small for the division against a decent wrestler. Like, it's very, very easy for me to picture Cody winning a decision or Cody subbing him. But I just don't really trust Cody to put together a game plan for 15 minutes here. The one thing in this fight that really kind of somewhat intrigues me is Brundage by submission here, which is, hold on, let me see that. Currently plus 500. I mean, we'll see what it looks like as the rest of the domestics open it up. But that kind of intrigues me because I do think he can arm triangle Brundage here if he gets on top. Brundage can arm triangle Razak. Yeah, here if he gets on top, just based on how Razak defends takedowns and tries to get up, I could pretty easily imagine him subbing Alhassan in general. Like, that line seems a bit wide to me. Like, even if you think the money line is right, I think that sub line feels a bit wide to me. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I could never bet Razak at this juice. I just feel like Cody's obviously the size. Do you want to trust him with your money? I mean, what do you think?
Honestly, I came in the tape thinking, like, I wanted to bet Razak. Like, I thought, to me, like, minus 150, that's not bad, and then coming out of the tape, it's like, honestly, to me, like, I think it's probably accurate. It's probably fine, but I could also see scenarios where it's like Cody gets him down early, tires him out, and then, those big bursts of energy just aren't there anymore, and then Cody's easily able to just duck under and just land easy takedowns. So, I don't know. I think the line's probably fine. I think Razak knocks him out. But again, to your point, wouldn't want to lay this juice in elevation. Yeah. Now, if it wasn't in elevation, I probably would absolutely lay minus 150.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I would. Honestly, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. Dude, Razak, he's
Shot
really not. On who wins this?
Yeah. If you want Cody.
I mean, I'll do it. I mean, fuck it. Like, what's it's just money, or but not even money. It's just alcohol, right?
Yes.
Well, are we doing 1 for 1 here?
1 for 1 here, yeah.
All right, then I get to call the next fight that we are on opposite sides, and I am on like a minus 180 favorite. I'm going to tell
you.
That's
fine.
Fine.
Yeah,
deal. Write it down. Write it down.
I'll keep track of it.
Next fight, interesting fight here. Should be a fun one for as long as it lasts. And I actually think it might last a bit. We got Gabriel Bonfim. He's taking on Ange Loosa. Current price on Bonfim minus 301. Comeback on Loosa plus 251. I'm kind of torn here because I feel like after watching like Bonfim's last fight, it's like pretty tough to trust this guy fighting in altitude. against anybody who's going to provide resistance. And I mean, I don't think that's all that surprising, given most of his career has been round one finishes, and a couple times he's been extended. Even prior to the Dalby fight, he gassed out. But I mean, I really don't like Loosa as a fighter. You know, there are people who have liked this guy forever. I really think he is just not very good. He's a good athlete. He's a decent wrestler. He's got okay power, good durability, but I just feel like he's not very skilled. And Bonfim, you know, he's got big holes, but he's good at what he's good at, you know, if that makes sense. And, you know, I kind of think he's going to dominate this fight until he doesn't and dies, or, you know, until he finishes the fight. Like that's kind of like my view of it. I think Bonfim is the better striker. He's taller, he's longer, he's faster. I think he's a bit sharper. I think he's the better wrestler of the two. I think he's the much more dangerous grappler of the two. You know, the obvious big question here is in altitude. Do you want to really trust Gabriel Bonfim? Obviously not, is the obvious answer there.
Right.
Like you're not betting Bonfim at minus 300. I mean, honestly,
let me ask you this, John, because I know what you're about to talk about here. Would you rather bet the over 1.5 at the juice that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Versus Bonfim ITD at like minus 130.
Oh, I'd much rather have the over 1.5. I actually was going to go the other way with it. I think Bonfim is the better fighter. I do not trust this guy to pace himself, not even a little bit. My question has been, do I want to bet the over 1.5? Do I want to bet Ange Loosa, or do I want to just pass both and wait for Loosa live? Like, I do think Bonfim is a much more skilled fighter than Loosa, but I also think Loosa is not an easy guy to get out of there, you know? For as much as I just shit on Loosa skill-wise, I think Bonfim is better. I think Bonfim asserting himself for 15 straight minutes is going to be extremely difficult. Like, if this fight goes into the later stages of round 2, it probably gets pretty fucking hairy for Bonfim, if we're being honest, right? I mean, you disagree?
Yeah. No.
So with that kind of fight, it's like I almost want to take the plus 250, but Bonfim, it's like
you might as well just wait around. You might as well just avoid the danger, just wait around. Just
I was looking at over also, just because I really don't think Loosa is going to be as easy to finish as the other guys Bonfim's fought. But then I was like, well, maybe I should just bet Loosa then. But then say, well, if I want to do that, I could just wait till live, you know? I mean, Kugame said Bonfim sub 1 is better than. I mean, I agree with that, for sure.
Yeah. All I was going to add was that over 1.5 and Loosa. Like, I wouldn't want to lose both bets at once, if you know what I mean. Like, if Bonfim obviously knocks him out or subs him in the first round.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, so, like, I was looking at the over 1.5 above all else. But it's like, if you like the over 1.5 at minus 158, wouldn't you rather just take the shot on Loosa? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But, yeah, I haven't really decided. I mean, that's kind of what I think. I think Bonfim's got him very much outskilled. I just don't. I can't, unless Bonfim subs him fast, I have a very hard time imagining in an extended fight Loosa not looking like he's the clear side here. Just based on hardware and cardio against the guy with bad cardio who maybe is a bit wilty. What do you think?
I already gave my...
No, you cut me off to say, what do you think of this?
Yeah, Bonfim Loosa. Oh.
Yeah.
Never mind. Oh, my bad then. But no, I mean, I guess I gave my spiel a little bit there. But I mean, personally, I think Bonfim ITD, if I was going to play the fight at minus 130, would be the way I would target it. But
yeah,
I have no interest with him in elevation. I just don't think much of Loosa, to your point as well. Just guy's an athlete, has a little bit of power on the feet, some wrestling upside, a little bit of grappling upside, but I think Bonfim should be fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Moving on, what do you think here, Lags? We've got Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's taking on Muslim Salikov. Current price, we're seeing some Salikov money start to show. Ponzinibbio minus 184. Come back on Salikov plus 159. What do you think?
Well, I know for a fact nobody's going to be talking about this. Narrative Nation, Argentina is in the Copa America final. That is on Sunday. Ponzinibbio, Saturday night. Argentinian, co-main event. It's going to show out for his people. I mean,
I respect it.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, this fight could either be really boring or really high-paced and pretty violent. I personally think Salakov's probably going to have a decent round one, but I think Pons, the volume is probably just going to not overextend. I think the volume is he's going to be able to outvolume him in the round 2, round 3. I trust his cardio way more as well, even though they're both old men. I don't trust either of their durabilities, but I just lean on the Pons side. I think the guy's a better hitter. I think he's got more volume on his side as well.
I initially leaned the Salakov side. I waited a bit too long because I was thinking money was going to come in on Pons further, and this was going to get out to Salakov near plus 200. It didn't. The issue is just Salakov's gas, right? I feel like I think both guys are pretty fragile at this point. Like I can imagine either guy KOing the other. The problem is Salakov's consistently shown against any kind of pace that he kind of melts past 6 or 7 minutes. So it's kind of hard at the current price, like plus 155 to want to get involved. And I think it'll be competitive first round. But, Pons has shown a willingness to really push a pace even against decent hitters, throughout his career. And I'd expect him to do that here. And then I kind of think if he clears that first 6 or 7 minutes, you probably see Salakov collapse down the stretch as he's wont to do in these kind of fights. It'll be a fun fight. They're both very technically gifted. Salakov's obviously very fast and hits hard. Pons, obviously, very, very strong pressure boxer. Hits pretty hard himself. I think both can get KO'd early. But actually what really stands out to me from a betting perspective is Salakov KO1. I think you capture a lot of his win equity with it. And like on FanDuel and a couple other spots, I'm seeing like plus 950 out there for like whatever you can get down on that. And that's pretty good in my opinion. Taking Salakov KO1 there. He could obviously KO him in round 2, but I kind of think given the pace that Pons tends to push, you're going to see the large majority of Salakov's win equity is going to be early in this fight, and that's a decent way to look. Pons 2-3 could be okay. I haven't really looked at prices for that yet. But yeah, I'm interested in Salakov KO1. The price for the fight where it is right now, I think it's probably a little wide just because, Ponzinibbio got hurt 4 times by Alex Morono, right? So trusting him at juice at this juncture in his career seems a bit on the crazy side to me. But he does have superior cardio and superior pace. So I don't know. It's probably a pass. I'll take Salakov early. If the numbers on Pons late are good, I'll be on those as well. But I do think Pons minus like 150 to 170 range is probably fine in terms of how the fight's lined. Moving on, though. Main event of the evening. Rose Namajunas taking on Tracy Cortez in her first main event ever. Current price, Rose is a favorite. She's minus 200. Comeback on Cortez, plus 170. What are your thoughts here, lads? Did Tracy Cortez duplicate the shit show that was Carla Esparza, Rose Namajunas too?
I don't think so. Obviously that was a shit show and nothing really happened in that fight. But I don't think Cortez has the gas on this short notice. I don't think she has the wrestling to hold Rose down. The striking to me is much bigger. Like the gap in the striking is much bigger than the wrestling. So I favor Rose. I think the line's probably fine.
Yeah, I think Rose minus like 185 to minus 190 is probably okay. It's another one. Like I thought we were going to keep seeing Rose money, and I'd take a shot at Cortez in like the plus 220-ish range, but it didn't really get there. It's kind of easy to see how Cortez wins this fight, right? Like a lot of wrestling, a lot of takedowns, holds Rose down. There's a couple things on the Cortez side that scare me in this fight. It's, first of all, she's never gone 5 rounds before in her career. Second of all, it's in altitude. And not only is it in altitude, but her winning this fight more or less relies on her wrestling in this fight. So you have to really believe like she is banking rounds off one takedown, to think she is covering this price. Or not covering this price, but like is significant value in the spot. And on top of which, she's at a huge striking disadvantage. Whereas Rose, I've always been a bit skeptical of Rose's wrestling. And, I do think Cortez can get takedowns here. But I think Rose's get-up game has gotten a bit better in recent years. I think she's got a huge striking edge. She's obviously been in 5 rounds against much better competition multiple times, which is kind of a scary dynamic. And Yeah, I don't know. Like, because Cortez is kind of the kind of fighter I would draw up if I wanted to bet a dog against Rose, right? Volume wrestler or whatnot. But I also am just like, I mean, is Tracy Cortez Carla Esparza? Like, I don't really see a lot of reason to think that's the case. I don't think she's as good a wrestler as Esparza, and I don't think she's got as good a top game. I don't think she's got as good a grappler once the fight is grounded as Amanda Ribas is. And Amanda Ribas struggled pretty dramatically to keep Rose on the mat. So I'm thinking about the fight, and it's like, yeah, I mean, could there be dominant upside for Cortez in this fight? Yeah, there could be. I mean, Cortez theoretically could get a ton of control time, right, and win this fight. I just kind of think it's unlikely. Amanda Ribas got 4 takedowns against her in their last fight, only controlled her for a minute and 58 seconds. Obviously, the last time, yeah.
No, go ahead. No, I didn't know you were done. All I was going to say is I think she's drawing dead other than a decision. I don't think she's finishing at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I don't think finishing at all. I could see, because it is in altitude. I don't think Rose has the best cardio ever either. Like, I could see her subbing down the road in this fight if she's having big success. I'm just kind of skeptical she will. Like, Ribas got 2 minutes of control against her. Does she have a much better top game than Ribas does? I don't really think so. So it's kind of a fight where, like, okay, I can see the case for how Cortez can win this fight dominantly, right? But think about it a different way. I can imagine a fight where Cortez lands 5 or 6 takedowns and loses 49-46, like, comfortably. Whereas I can't really, it's very, very difficult for me to imagine a fight where Cortez gets 0 takedowns and wins this fight. Maybe you get a carbon copy of Rose 2 and Rose Carla 2, and that's what happens. But short of that, it's just very, very difficult for me to imagine Cortez winning a 25-minute striking decision against Rose. So I don't know. Like, Cortez does have some skills that pose issues for Rose, but the altitude and Cortez's lack of a plan B post wrestling in the context of this kind of fight just scares me. Again, it's the kind of fight where I feel like you'll get a pretty good beat on how this fight's going to go after a round or two. Plus, like, the Rose cardio cliff is going to be there eventually. So it's like, if Cortez is competing hard and you get a big live number, take it. But otherwise, I don't feel the need to, like, try to chase, like, getting Rose here when I'm chasing her with a fighter whose best win is Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's not a great striker and who is entirely reliant on grappling for 25 minutes in altitude and never been 5 rounds before. Like, to me, that dynamic's not great. Like, it just adds. I would never bet Rose minus 220. Pepe think Cortez. I don't know. Like, I don't think Rose has great cardio, but, like, I doubt Cortez has, tangibly better cardio. Like it's funny because I think I almost think. Now, I don't want to say Rose is getting underrated, but I feel like some people dismiss her, and we're dismissing her before the Ribas fight, when it's like, whatever you want to say about her, she won a 5-round decision with Weili Zhang. She won a 5-round decision with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. They were close fights, but we know Rose can be a dog for 5 rounds, whereas we don't really know with Cortez. Her cardio looks good, but I don't really know, and I don't know how to play in altitude. I just feel like there's a lot more uncertainty in terms of what you're getting in the context of this fight on the Cortez side than there is on the Rose side. I'm picking Rose. I think she's going to win this fight. I think minus 200, personally, I think is fine here. So, yeah. I mean, that'll do it, guys. It's kind of, honestly, I don't think it's a bad card watchability-wise, right?
No, not at all.
Let me ask something, Lags. In the context of the main event, Rose Namajunas pre-shaving her head. Fan or not a fan?
Fan.
Bigger or fan than Tracy Cortez, or less of a fan than Tracy Cortez?
Oh, less.
It's an interesting one. It is an interesting one because depending, like Tracy Cortez, she does have a bit of like a guppy look to her face, Amazing body, amazing ass, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. How about Luana Santos, though?
Electric. Yeah, she is. I hope she ends up being good. Yeah, Josh is saying pre-shave way better than Cortez. I want Pepe's opinion in the chat here. I want everybody, give your opinions if you're still in the chat here. Pre-shaving Rose or Rose before she shaved her head, or Cortez? Dogfather going Agapova Electric. Pepe too. Oh my God. We're gonna break the internet here.
You guys are sick. You guys are sick. Oh,
I mean, I can see it with Agapova. Like, you throw some makeup on her. I mean,
I don't think now she's.
I can see it.
She looks like anorexic now. It's bad.
I mean, look, we need to get her on a milkshake diet for. Yeah, this is true. Don't get crazy with it. Embe saying Cortez for sure. I don't know, Embe. There's a picture lurking out there somewhere. I mean, Rose had some real sex appeal earlier in her life. Yeah, dogfights and crazy women are different, man. They do hit different. I will say, they're probably not conducive to, longevity, like your own personal life longevity, But yeah, Mariya Agapova, though, the consensus chat winner of the week here, I think. Taking sleeping pills and blowing away the club and sub chat with her looks here. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. We'll be back next week. What do we got next week? I think it's like UFC Vegas 94 or something. It's an interesting card. I've been looking at it a little bit. It is, what's the main event next week?
It is Lemos and Verna.
Yeah, it's a horrible man. That's why I can't remember it. But there were some interesting fights on the card. So, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. See, that just killed. Is she super religious, Tracy Cortez? I'll tell you this. The first serious girlfriend I ever had in high school was, like, giga religious. It hits different, when they're doing things when God's not looking, or when they think God's not looking. Anyway, thanks for coming out tonight, guys. For 30% off on a month on fightnumbers.com, use the promo code CLUB. They got the live screen. They got Pepe who's in the chat. They got John Kelly. They got Ozzy. They got Chad. They got Evan. They've also got John Kelly's DFS projections. It's a fucking great package. Check it out. And, guys, again, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. Take it easy. God bless. Peace.